What's up everyone, Luna here, and today I want to talk about Kafka. Ever since Kafka got released, she's been going down and down the tier lists in terms of damage for her best in slot team, and there are many reasons for this that I want to cover in this video, as well as the fact as to why the future looks so bright for Kafka, and that she's finally going to be fulfilling her actual role as more of a sub DPS, and why the DOT team is looking so synergistic. As well as the fact that I want to give you guys a team that I am going to be using on my account. Now this team has had some crazy luck, with not only but my polls, but also some really good gear. And so this team, while not being 100% free to play, it is definitely free to play attainable if you focus all of your Stellar Jades on the team, and I think that it's not going to get power crept anytime soon. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So firstly, I want to say that Kafka has very much fallen from where she used to be. She used to be an S tier unit with her best insult team. Now, bearing in mind this is before Jinglu and Imbibe to Lune came out, but before that all happened, she was super strong. And after that all happened, she's really looking quite weak. And generally people are still questioning as to whether they should pull on her. So first of all, I want to recover what Kafka actually is. Kafka is, at the essential foundations of her kit, a character that is there to make other DPSs shine. Now this is why people have been running Crit Kafka, because quite simply there are no other good .DPSs to make shine. Yes, we have Luca, and yes, we have Gwenaifen, but their dots are relatively low percentages compared to if we were to get a 5-star in the future. And quite a lot of people are reluctant to spend their resin on building them when realistically they're just going to get replaced in the future. So not only did I want to say that pretty much building Gwenaifen and building Luca at this point are going to be pretty useless if you're thinking about pulling for Black Swan, but also the fact that this is her best in slot team at the moment. Gwenaifen and Luca and a healer alongside Kafka is essentially the standard for what is a DOT team. However, with the release of Ruan Mei and the future release of Black Swan, this is going to change very much. Because now that we're seeing a potential of Black Swan being really good, we're seeing the fact that Kafka can actually fit into her sub DPS role more comfortably compared to how she currently is, where realistically you're preying on all of Kafka's damage and none of anyone else's damage. So for anyone who's unaware, Kafka's entire kit is based around making damage over times happen again. The reason why this is really strong is because generally it's just doubling damage for other dot characters as well as her own damage over time. So already from just looking at her kit, you can really start to see that she's not a main DPS, she's a support. She's made to amplify the other teammates. She's not meant to be the S tier single target DPS, more that the dot team is supposed to be a collective. It's supposed to be all of their damage that Kafka helps them increase. So realistically, she is sort of a sub DPS damage support type thing. Now, the reason why we've seen her fall from grace as an ST unit is quite simply because of hypercarry. People using Bronya as well as Tingyun, and then a healer, and then literally just any other DPS is going to be stronger than whatever Kafka can pull out. Now, the reason of this is quite simply because we have a complete team. Kafka doesn't. We are sort of using 4 stars as sort of a filler for whenever we get Black Swan and whenever we get a better support. But now we have the better support in terms of Ruan Mei. So after Black Swan comes out, we would have completed the 4 character collective of having a complete team that synergizes extremely well together. And I'm going to talk about that later in the video with my team and the team that I have in planned for when Black Swan releases. So now I want to talk about the buffs that damage over time have been slowly getting. first of all, we've gotten Ruan Mei. And what Ruan Mei does is she's a harmony character that isn't built around crit, which means that actual damage over time Kafka is going to be getting way stronger than crit Kafka, just with the release of Ruan Mei. And so I believe that we're going to see the standard dot Kafka pulling ahead of the more obscure crit Kafka, because now that we're getting characters that actually buff things other than crit, we're going to be seeing that they're going to fit better into the team, and so we're going to see Kafka pull ahead in terms of the dot build. Now I want to talk about Black Swan and why she's going to be so significant. Black Swan is the first 5-star Nihility character that we have that has a dot debuff. Now yes, we have had Nihility characters in the past, such as Silverwolf, but Silverwolf is Quantum, and Quantum does not have any damaging debuffs, or dots as we call it. Now the reason why Black Swan is so significant is because she is a wind 5-star Nihility character. This means that innately, at the very least, she's going to have wind shear, which means that Kafka can make that wind shear happen again. So not only are we guaranteed a 5-star dot character, we're also guaranteed them to be at least providing something other than just their dot to the team. And the reason is because dot characters, when they release, and all of the dot characters that we've seen so far, such as Gwenaifen, they always have something else to their kit. Gwenaifen has a defense shred, in terms of Fire Kiss, as well as the fact that she gives a burn. So therefore, if a 4-star is going to have it, I'm almost certain that a 5-star character in terms of Black Swan is definitely going to have a few extra things in her kit that are going to synergize well with Kafka. And so the way I want you guys to look at the dot team is the fact that Kafka is essentially 75% effectiveness, and then Black Swan is going to be another 75% effectiveness. And then I want you to compare this to a traditional damage character, such as Jinglu, or for purpose of this video, let's just say Jinglu, because she's the best at the moment. Jinglu is going to have 125%. Now this isn't actual numbers, this is just trying to help you understand how dot teams work. So Jinglu is 125%, right? And then Kafka and Black Swan are 75%. But when you have both of them in a team, you do 150%. Which means that together, they're going to be better than one Jinglu. Now the reason why Jinglu is currently the best character in the game is quite simply because of the supports that we have behind her. Yes, she is an amazing character on her own, but the fact that we have Bronya making it so you can in one turn get your transcending flow state, as well as the fact that we have other characters like Ruan Mei releasing, that you can use certain sets that increase the DPS of characters with the same element as you, is just making Jinglu stronger. But until Black Swan comes out, we haven't really had much for Kafka other than Gwenaifen. And of course a 4-star isn't going to live up to the same legacy as a 5-star is. So at the moment we're looking at Kafka giving 75%, and then Gwenaifen giving about 30%. So we're hitting 105%, meaning that Jinglu is still vastly ahead of the dot team. Once again, these numbers are completely gobbledygook and just made up to attempt to help you see the dot team as how I see it. So after we've looked at all of this, I'm now going to move on to the fact that we've been slowly getting DOT buffs. So the first big dot buff that we got was, I believe, Gwenaifen releasing, as well as the fact that we also got Wowo. Wowo is a healer who grants energy and can grant attack percent from her ultimate. This is super strong for a DOT team because realistically their ultimates are going to be super strong and you're going to have more than one DPS. So this is where my theory crafting started, of having Wowo as the single buffer for your whole team, instead of having 2 dot characters and then 1 support. But now I'm thinking of moving back to the 2 dot characters and 1 support with the help of Ruan-Mei. You see, Ruan-Mei has essentially allowed this 2 DPS playstyle that quite a lot of people have been hoping for. And with this plays even better into the dot team. You see, Ruan-Mei buffs damage percent, speed, and lowers enemies' effect resistance. Well, not effect resistance, just elemental resistance. As well as makes it easier to break the enemies. And what characters synergize with break the best? Well, Quantum and Imaginary, because they have their own break effects, but also DOT teams, because they have an extremely powerful dot that comes off of breaking an enemy. And so now we're starting to see all these small buffs congregating together. So we've got Gwenaifen, the new dot set, Glamoth is just ridiculous, as well as the fact that we now have Ruan-Mei, and then very soon we're going to get Black Swan. And quite simply, I don't see this team getting power crept, just because of how synergistic it is. Now to talk about the final part of the video. This part is going to be probably quite long, and I'm going to say this right now. I'm not going to sell this build off to you guys as a free-to-play friendly build. It is not. It has their signature light cones, and my Huohuo is also E1. So very much it is a Dolphin-esque build, but realistically I just got lucky, and I've had pulls that I can use because I got lucky on previous banners. For example, I got Blade's light cone in like 10 pulls, and I got Kafka's in 7. So, as you can see, I've definitely saved a lot of Stellar Jade by essentially pulling these stupid stunts just out of nowhere. So not only is it the fact that I have spent a bit, yes, but I've also gotten extremely lucky. So let's have a look at the team that I want to build. So first of all, I want to cover the characters. We are going to have Kafka, Black Swan, Ruan-Mei, and Huohuo. And their gear is going to be as follows. We're going to have Kafka with the 4-piece DOT set, as well as 2-piece Glamoth. We're going to have pretty much the exact same thing on Black Swan, unless her gear and her kit calls for a different artifact set, but we'll have to see. And then we have Ruan-Mei. Ruan-Mei is going to be on the 4-piece Messenger of Fleeting Hackerspace, so that she can give our whole team speed when she ults. As well as the fact that she's also going to be on Fleet of the Ageless. And the reason that we are on Fleet of the Ageless is because it is giving attack. Generally, I found this is the hardest part of thinking about for Ruan-Mei's build, because quite a lot of people are going to run her alongside Jinglu and have her with the, I believe, Penacony set, which gives 10% increased damage to teammates of the same type, as well as energy regeneration. But the fact that Huohuo exists means that I don't really need the energy regeneration, so just having energy regen on the rope as the main stat is way more than enough to have around a 3-turn ultimate. As well as the fact that her light cone, but we'll talk about that in a minute. And then finally, we have my Huohuo. My Huohuo is on 2-piece Fleet of the Ageless, 2-piece Messenger Traversing Hackerspace, as well as 2-piece Passerby Wandering Cloud. This is basically what I use to get quite a lot of speed on my Huohuo, as well as the fact that it gives quite a lot of outgoing healing. And I'll talk about how I use my Huohuo and why she's so skill point efficient. And so now let's look at my light cones. For Kafka, we're going to be using her signature light cone. This provides a second dot debuff that does count towards the damage over times set bonus for ignoring defense, as well as the fact that it's just a really strong light cone because it makes her even quicker. So my Kafka is probably going to be sitting at around 170 speed, which is way overkill, but oh well. Now for Black Swan, we're going to see a few options. First of all, probably Eyes of the Prey. Eyes of the Prey could be a very good light cone, dependent on whether or not she needs effect hit rate. Generally, wind shear has quite a low percentage effect hit rate, so maybe we're gonna need effect hit rate on Black Swan. But if not, then you can always just use solitary healing. Solitary healing is the light cone from the Herter shop in Simulated Universe. You can get it by basically just playing Simulated Universe every week and slowly grinding your way to get it. Other than that, she's probably going to release with a 4-star light cone, like pretty much every other character does. Whether this is actually on the path of nihility or not, we don't know. Once again, it's just speculation as to whether she will. I mean, Rohan Mei came out with one, but her light cone is for destruction, I believe. So, there's that. Next, you have my Rohan Mei. My Rohan Mei is running a R5 Memories of the Past. The reason why we use Memories of the Past is because, first of all, it helps with hitting the break effect %, as well as it gives 8 energy every single basic attack, and because Rohan Mei is skill point efficient once every 3 turns, she's going to be auto-attacking twice for every time she skills. So we're generating 16 energy for free, as well as the energy regeneration rate, so we're looking at a very, very sustainable ultimate, on top of the fact that we have Huohuo's ultimate granting her more energy, so we're going to have her ultimate up quite a lot of the time. And finally, we have Huohuo on her signature light cone. Now, the reason why I think Huohuo's signature light cone is so important for her is quite simply, it just adds an entirely new mechanic to her kit, and makes it so that she doesn't actually have to skill unless she's trying to keep up her bar at the bottom. And the reason why is, first of all, it increases energy regen rate, meaning that you get her ult quite a lot. As well as the fact that whenever any ally uses their ultimate, the wearer restores HP for the ally, currently with the lowest HP percentage, by an amount equal to 10% of the healed ally's max HP. So basically what that means is just whenever you use an ultimate, your character is going to get healing, whoever used the ultimate, as well as if they're already max health, some other character on your team with the lowest health is going to get healing. This is generally just a ridiculous light cone, and adds, as I said, an entirely new mechanic to Huohuo's kit. And it makes it that so she can solo sustain without me really giving it any thought at all, because whenever one of my characters takes damage, I just ult. And generally with dot teams, you can kind of just ult whenever. You do want to ult before the dots run out, but realistically you can just ult in the middle of an enemy's turn. So whenever my Kafka gets hit, as an example, I'm just going to use Kafka's ult. It's going to do a crazy amount of damage, as well as the fact that it's going to heal her. So it's just really, really strong, especially because this whole team is very much based around energy regeneration. With Huohuo's ult, as well as the fact that you've got Rohan Mei ulting quite a lot. Kafka's going to be ulting quite a lot because it's Kafka, she gets energy for every enemy she kills. And Black Swan, we're not quite sure yet, but you're going to be using quite a lot of ults, so having this just makes it so solo sustaining is a lot easier. And honestly, I don't think I would actually run this team if I didn't get this light cone, because of how strong this light cone is, genuinely. It makes it so that Huohuo can solo sustain. I'm sure that other characters could solo sustain this team, so don't be afraid to run this team, especially if you have someone like Luocha, who is very much fine to be in this team instead of Huohuo. But I just like using Huohuo because not only does she give attack % boosts, but she also gives energy to my whole team, and that means that Rohan Mei can keep her field up, Kafka can dot explode multiple times. It's just really strong. And now I want to talk about the eidolons. So literally, I am planning on getting only one Black Swan, and maybe dependent on what pity I get her at, I might consider pulling for her cone, as well as dependent on how good her cone is. However, the only character on this team that I have an eidolon for is Huohuo. I do not plan on getting eidolons for anyone else. I'm not much interested in getting Kafka eidolons, and I'm not much interested in getting Rohan Mei eidolons either. The only reason why I got the Huohuo eidolon was because the speed increase helps me reach the Glamoth breakpoint to hit the max % of damage you can get out of it which is required 160 speed, as well as the fact that, quite simply, making it so Huohuo is skill point efficient for an extra turn, meaning that for every 1 skill point she uses, she gains 2. So realistically, she's the same as Ruan-Mei, using 2 default attacks and then skilling. So she's creating an extra skill point that is just sitting around, which when you're using Kafka, she is going to be using skill point every single turn. So having skill points is really, really important for this team, which is why Luocha would be such a good fit, and Huohuo would only be such a good fit if you can hit this. I think Huohuo is a great character, don't get me wrong. I mean, if I didn't, I wouldn't have gone for E1, as well as I wouldn't have gotten her light cone. But quite simply, she is a very high investment character to get what you can get out of a Luocha without any investment. Luocha is better than Huohuo at every single point, unless Huohuo has cone and potentially E1 as well, at which point Huohuo far exceeds pretty much any other healer. So if you have the investment to put into Huohuo, I think it's very much worth it, but if you don't, then that's fine. You can just use the Luocha and this team will be fine either way. And so I'm going to put on screen the team builder for Honkai Star Rail, and this is going to essentially use my team as the example and show how many skill points they're generating. Now this is over a set amount of turns, but as you can see, we are still 1 skill point positive after, I believe, 7 turns this is calculated out to be, which, if you haven't killed your enemy in 7 cycles, then I'm not gonna lie, your team's not strong enough. Sampo is essentially, as you can see, it's custom, so realistically, this isn't Sampo, this is what my Black Swan would be. So just ignore the fact that it's Sampo and just pretend Black Swan is there. And so, after 7 turns, we are still 1 skill point positive. Now, at the very start of the battle, this is very much required, but you're going to want to use Ruan-Mei's E outside of battle, so that you can get as many skill points generated as possible. If not, you're probably only going to last until like round 5. As well as the fact that, realistically, you are going to want to speed tune your team. You want Kafka to be going last out of everyone at round start. So the fact that my Kafka has 168 speed is a bit stupid, because that means that I'm going to try and have to get my Huohuo to at least 169, same with Ruan-Mei and Black Swan. Now that is ideal, but as I've said, it's not required. If anything, I could probably lower my Kafka speed a tiny bit through other means. So with all that said and done, this is the team that I'm going to be using for pretty much the rest of Star Rail, unless some other characters come out that are crazy. So I really hope you enjoyed this video, and take into account building this team that I have put quite a lot of dedication to sort of theory crafting and creating. I genuinely think that this is going to be the best dot team possible, and I can't really see it getting much better, which is kind of sad, but it's also kind of making me happy, because it means that if I want to make it better, I can get eidolons, I can get better light cones, and I can just slowly start making their gear better and better. Thank you everyone, I hope you have a great day, and see you guys in the next one. Peace.